Welcome to another unpacking. I got this package not too long ago, and the thing is, I want to open it up for you to see what's inside. I have a good idea what's inside of it. As you can tell, I've never opened it, and I'm sort of curious to see whether it survived the trip or not. I certainly hope so. I think I'm going to let you enjoy unpacking it together with me. So here we go. Here. Let me see, where is... Okay, there, I think. Hang on. This is not going too well. Okay, hang on. Okay. Okay. Hang on. Okay. The guy certainly didn't skimp on packing tape. Okay. Here we go. I think I opened it. Okay, hang on. I still need to cut a bit more tape. Okay. Well, okay. Bubble wrap. I'm not too fond of that, but okay, well, let's have a look. I think you guys can tell already what it is. So hang on. I bought this on an auction on eBay not too long ago, and it sort of spoke to me. I mean, it's a piece of vintage stuff, and I'm sure you guys already know what it is. Here we go. Okay, hang on. Let me make some space for you guys to see it. Hang on. Okay, let's close up the box. There you go. Yeah. I bought this little TV, like I said, on the internet, on eBay. And it's a TV from the 70s. Now, you guys certainly remember the Telemate I repaired not too long ago. And, as you all know, the Telemate is a TV, a tiny portable TV from the 90s. And I bought this set because it is one from the 70s, you know, and, maybe some of you might have guessed, I have a sort of fondness for anything from the 70s, you know, 60s, 70s, and, as you probably can tell, this TV is a Sony, and it's a model TV-520. Now, I think it's called TV-520, just to give it a type number. I mean, it probably has nothing to do with the fact that it's a TV. Its type number is called TV-520. Anyway, this is the typical design they used in the 70s, and I like it. I like it a lot. Now, the TV itself is okay. There's only a button missing, as you can tell for yourselves. This is the channel button, and what I can tell immediately is that the numbers don't change, well, at least not right away with the channel selector. So that will probably need some repair or at least some cleaning. Also, well, I told before I'm missing a button, so I will have to go and look around whether I can find a button somewhere. I suppose this outer button here is the fine-tuning, and the inner axis is for the UHF channel selector. So yeah, I think it uses a button pretty much like this one, so I'll have to go look for one somewhere. And as you can tell, the fine-tuning is inside the big button. So okay, so aside from missing a button and a few scratches here and there and a little bit of discoloring, the TV is pretty much in its original state. It even has its original antenna, which I can pull out completely, which is great. So yeah, well, this will be my next restoration project. Well, and as you can tell, it also has its own connector here. That's a special kind of connector. Haven't seen this type before. But okay, well, that's peculiar, but okay, I suppose it's a kind of a safety feature that you have to push it so deep inside the TV. Oh yeah. Okay, it came without manual or papers or schematic or whatever, but I managed to lay my hands on a schematic, on a service manual actually. So yeah, what I'm going to do is to open it up and then have a look at its insides and see if I can at least check the filament of the picture tube, because I'm not certain it's still good. Yeah, if it's bad, then well, then this project is dead in water. So that's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to open up this TV's cabinet and check at least the filament of the picture tube, and if this type of picture tube is in the list of my picture tube tester, my Sencor 133, then we might even have a go at testing the picture tube. I had a look at the service manual, and unmounting or disassembling rather this TV set should be relatively straightforward. They say you have to unmount all the buttons first, so that's what I'm going to do. Okay, that's one button. Excuse me. That's 2 buttons. 3 and 4. Oh, this one is cracked. That's not so good. So this is something we'll have to repair, obviously, before we mount it back. Okay, so that's already one thing we will need to repair. Now, they say I have to undo 5 screws. Okay, let's have a look. 5 screws, which would be this one and this one. That's 2. Then let's have a look at the bottom. And then I might have to, although I'm not quite certain, that maybe I might have to screw loose this one here and then these 2 here. But I'm not so certain. It might be this one over there and that one that I have to unscrew, and that would make it 5. So this one down there, and this one, and then, if I'm not mistaken, I should unscrew these 2. Okay, so let's just do that. Okay, I found out in the end how I should unmount the upper part of the cabinet, and it was indeed unscrewing the screws that I showed, but I also had to unmount the front bezel, which you see here. Normally it's locked into place like this, but by gently pressing on the top and then swiveling it forward, so like that, swiveling it forward, you can simply lift it out, and from then on you can simply lift the top of the cabinet like this, and it comes off in one piece, as you can tell for yourselves. There's nothing special in the cabinet, although there is a weird thing, which is that the antenna doesn't seem connected to anything. But okay, we'll find that out in a moment. The usual blah blah blah. The only thing that's really interesting for me is that the high voltage transformer seems to work on 9 kilovolts, as you can tell for yourselves. There's also a date inside the cabinet, at least I think it is, and it says 4/30, so it could be the 30th of April, I suppose. The 51, or perhaps the 59 on the left, I don't know what it is. Maybe that would be a revision number or something. No idea. Anyway, the cabinet looks to be unscathed from the inside, which is a good thing. I see no cracks or anything, and it also gives me a good indication of what its original color would have been. However, the handle, the carrying handle on top, is only attached to the top of the cabinet by 2 tiny little screws, as you can tell. And that I really don't like. Okay, granted, the TV doesn't weigh a lot, but still, it seems a little bit fragile as a carrying handle. So I might have to look into that and perhaps reinforce it just a little bit. Okay, so anyway, the rails you see here, the two metal rails on the inside, are what the bottom of the TV set is screwed to. So that's also good to know. Okay, let's move on to the set itself. Okay, so, well, like I said, the front is nothing too special. This is the channel switch. Pretty hard to do with my naked finger. Let me see whether I can move it with a duck bill like this. It moves, but yeah, well, I don't think the mechanism is okay. Well, at least not very. I think I might have to look into it. Okay, so I don't think this channel clunker is okay, but we'll look into it. Now we have the UHF channel selector, and that isn't too good either. And then I can tell right away that the volume potentiometer is skewed a bit to the right and downwards. So it must have been hit sometime in the past by something heavy, or maybe it was dropped on the button and got deformed. The tube itself looks okay, at least the front of the tube looks okay. No blemishes, no scratches, and it's relatively clean too, so that's good. Okay, now let's turn the TV around and look at it from the side. Okay, right away, what can we see here? I see this, and I think this is the power transformer. In fact, I'm pretty certain this is the power transformer. That's good. Okay, then let's turn it around and around. On top there's a PCB with a lot of wires running to it. Now, I don't know quite just yet what this PCB is, although it's my guess that it is all that's necessary to well, to produce the trace on the picture screen, yeah, on the CRT. I think this upper PCB is the part of the horizontal and vertical tracing on the screen. Okay. Then inside, yes, okay. Now I see. So this is part of the high voltage actually. So because we can see a tiny little high voltage. Okay, with a warning inside that indicates that to indicate presence of high voltage, arc anode lead to chassis only. Okay. Well, that would be a kind of a clue for somebody who's working in the field and needs to check whether there's high voltage or not. So that would be a crude method, of course, to hold the high voltage cap close to the chassis and see a spark arcing. I wouldn't have the nerve to do that, but well, there you go. A person in the field would be supposed to do that, I suppose. Okay, so well, as you can tell for yourselves, this is the AC plug, and as you can see, it was put inside the chassis like this. But apparently you can also rotate it like that. Yeah. So, and that would make it, I suppose, or you can rotate it like this rather. And that would make it a European style TV set. Somehow. Peculiar. I need to look at the service manual, what this is about. But right away I can tell there's more damage here. You can see that these little mounts here on the left and on the right, yeah, broke off this AC connector. So somebody has been ramming brutally the AC connector into the TV set. Which of course is not too good since it broke off. So that will need some repairing. Okay, what else can I see? Well, I can see just about the CRT back and the deflection coil, but I can't see any markings of the CRT type or anything. Okay. So let's turn it around another 90 degrees. Ah, there we are. Okay, so the CRT seems to be... Aha, there it is. So it's a Sony CRT, and the type would be a 140 CB4P, or yeah, a 140 CB4P, I guess, unless it would be 140 CB4, because the P apparently would be part of the word parts number 87-311-0513. Okay, that's something to look into. Yeah, I can't tell for myself. Ah, but here it is. Okay. Picture tube type 140 CB4. There you go. Okay, that's a picture type number I don't know. Most of the time, the picture tube types I see is something like, I don't know, 5BP4 or something like that. So yeah, well, I doubt my CRT tester would know this type of tube, but still, it's worth looking into it. Okay, what else can I see? For continued protection against fire, replace only with same type of fuse. Okay, and then it says what type of fuse to use. Okay. So it would be 1.2 amps, 120 volts fuse, or a 1.6 amp, 120 volt fuse. Peculiar. I can also see a little paper floating down there. Let's have a look. Aha. What is this? I don't know. I don't know what this stands for or what this is. It might be a chassis number. Possibly the serial number of the chassis. Okay, and right away I can tell. Okay, I'm going to put this safely away into the parts bag in a moment. Right away I can tell that the chassis is screwed to the bottom part of the cabinet with at least 2 screws here. So 1, 2, and if I turn it around carefully, yes, there are a few more screws here. So 1 here and 1 there. And down there you can see right here is the speaker. Well, at least 1 speaker. There's another PCB at the bottom of the TV. But for the life of me right now, off the top of my head, well, I can't really tell what it is, but if I would have to make a guess, I would say that is the tuner part, or at least part of the tuner. Maybe it's the video decoder, you know, which decodes the video signal from the carrier. Possibly. Hard to tell. Anyway, on the left there, you can tell immediately that is the channel clunker. Yeah. As well as the upper part as the lower part down there. Okay, so that will need a closer look too. Okay, but aside from that, right away I can't tell whether there are any burn marks or whether caps exploded or anything like that. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to unscrew the top PCB to have a closer look at the CRT inside. So let's do that. The top PCB, all I had to do was to take out 4 screws. The ones in fact you can see over there. 2 on the side of the PCB, holding it down with these 2 little plastic lugs you see here. Yeah. And 2 on top. 1 here and 1 over there. So I'm getting ready to release the top PCB from the chassis, and to have, or rather to be able to do that, I need to disconnect this connector. So that's exactly what I'm going to do now. I'm going to gently pull on the connector, and it's quite hard actually. Okay, let me put down the camera and give you a nice view of what I'm doing. There you go. Okay. And it's kind of hard. Oh goodness, this is really hard. Okay, there it goes. Great. Okay. Disconnected it. Okay, now we can flip the chassis over. Right. Wow. This, as you can tell, is the high voltage PCB, and there are quite a few of resistors and capacitors and transistors, because this is obviously a transistor TV, and there are also a few electrolytics. Now I'm looking at it, and I'm especially looking at the electrolytics, and as far as I can tell, they look okay. You know, none of the electrolytics seem to have burst or burned, so that's a good sign. That is in fact a terrific sign. And then there is one huge electrolytic, well, huge for this kind of tiny TV down there. I would say that is a filter cap for the power supply. It too looks okay, so that is a good sign that the TV might basically be sound and healthy. There's the usual dust, of course, and dirt, and there are also a few fuses, but the fuses, as you can tell for yourselves, are soldered onto the PCB. I don't like that very much, but okay, well, that's how they did it apparently at the factory. Now, mentioning the factory, I can't rightly tell whether this TV was worked on sometime in the past or not, but off the top of my head I would tend to say that the TV was not worked on since it left the factory. Okay, and the chassis run number is over there, 520. That would be the type of TV, and then you have the letters EF, and then the code B152V. So that might be the run of this type of chassis. Okay, interesting. Excuse me. Well, and down there you can see the deflection coil and the alignment magnets. You see here, one of these is the alignment magnet, and there should be a second one, and in fact there is a second alignment ring behind this one. And I think the tab to move the second alignment magnet is somewhere at the bottom of the CRT neck. The neck of the CRT looks okay, so I would tend to say it would be probably safe to pull loose the CRT connector and have a closer look at the CRT itself. So let's just do that. I'm measuring the resistance of the filament of the tube, and as you can tell for yourselves, the resistance I'm measuring right now, which is a cold value, so to speak, so the filament hasn't burned or hasn't lit up for the moment, is around 34 ohms. And you can tell for yourselves that I'm measuring from pin 3 and 4, which I'm assuming are the filament pins. So I think this CRT will function without any kind of problem. So what am I going to do next? Well, I'm going to replace all the electrolytics that I can replace first, and only then will I try to fire up the set. Well, I suppose some people would say, oh well, it'll be fine, you know, it's not a very old set and all that, so the capacitors should be fine. But I'm not going to take any risks. This is an old set after all, and well, you know, I just don't want to take any risks of either burning out the CRT or any other part of this set. So I'm going to do what most of you would probably think is rather boring, but I'm going to replace the electrolytics first. Mainly on the supply, the power supply board, which is this one here. And by the way, you see on the supply PCBs, power supply PCB, 3 fuses. Now, according to the service manual, 1 fuse is for the AC, 1 fuse is for the internal B plus voltage, and 1 fuse is for when the TV is hooked up to an external DC power supply. I don't know, like a car battery or something like that. Now, I haven't measured the fuses quite yet, so let's just do that now. Okay, so I'm going to take 2 crocodile leads, and I'm going to hook them up to each fuse in turn, and then we're going to measure together whether they are still functioning or not. So here we go. Let's just check this fuse first. This should be a 1.2 amp fuse according to the writing on the PCB. Hang on. Okay, now let's hook it up to my multimeter and let's check it out. Okay, hang on. That's 1. Okay, and now the other one. Here we go. Okay, so that fuse measures 2.6 ohms, which I guess is pretty close to what it should be. So let's go on to the next one. Hang on. Okay. So this is the second fuse. Let's see how it measures out. 2.7 ohms. Okay, so I guess that fuse is okay. So now the third fuse. Let's see. It's kind of tight in here, but I'll manage if you give me a moment. Okay, Now the other crocodile clamp. Okay. There you go. Alright, and that fuse measures out at about 4.5 ohms. Nice. Okay, so the 3 fuses measure out okay. So, let's get on with replacing the capacitors on the power supply board first. There are only 3 electrolytics, so that shouldn't take too long. The first capacitor I'm going to change is this 2200 microfarad 25 volts capacitor, which is this big one here. And I'm going to replace it. I don't have actual capacitors, unfortunately, but I have handy a 2225 volts capacitor, radial type. And this is the one I'm going to use, okay? So look at the size and compare it to the old one. Isn't that marvelous? Replaced all the capacitors on the power supply board, as you can tell for yourselves, and I also cleaned the PCB front and back. And now, well, I wouldn't say it looks brand new, but it certainly looks a lot better than before I replaced the capacitors. One thing I forgot to mention is that the filament of the CRT, according to the schematic, runs on 12 volt DC. I'm really upset at the quality of the solder points on the PCB. You'd think that something made by Sony would be excellent quality, but I mean, have a look at this solder point right here. Yeah, you see how badly it was soldered, and the one next to it. Yeah, that's the way they are all over the sprint board. I mean, look at this solder point here. And I can point a lot more, and this one here. And wait, I saw a few more. Oh, and over there. See? This one here. Here, right here. I mean, it's horrible. And this print board is full of such bad solder points. I mean, it's almost as if they didn't use solder at all. So I'll be forced to touch up all these solder points one by one to make sure that there is good electrical contact, because if I don't repair these solder points, there's going to be hell to pay, and it's going to run really, really bad. Yeah. Also, I spotted something which was either not cleaned off too well, or that suspiciously looks like a little burn mark. So, but I'm beginning to suspect that, you know, like this solder point over here, I mean, when I see the quality of the soldering on this PCB, well, I'm beginning to think that the problem is rather very, very poor soldering. So I'm just chugging on and soldering and unsoldering, or the reverse, all the electrolytics on this PCB. And I touch up any bad contacts as I go along. And that's what I'm going to be doing at least the next half hour. So here we go. Did it. I replaced all the electrolytics. on the CRT control board, and here's the bag with capacitors to prove it. Yeah, so it's quite a bunch. If I'm not mistaken, it's 22 capacitors. And it took me, well, I would say a couple of hours, maybe 3 hours, all in all, to do it. Because, well, I had to be careful, of course, not to ruin the copper traces on the other side of the PCB. Yeah, so, what I'm going to do now is to remount the PCB and the cap, the anode cap of the CRT, which you see here, which is really nothing but a miniature version of, well, of a large TV set. Oh, by the way, if you're looking for the rectifier of the high voltage, stop looking. The rectifier is really inside the high voltage coil, so in here. Yeah. Unfortunately, I guess to save money and all, the diode has been, and I meant to say a high voltage diode or rectifier, the diode or rectifier has been molded in here in this white piece of plastic, together with the high voltage coil. I guess, well, to keep it as low cost as possible, but also to provide for better insulation against high voltage and all that. Because this is special plastic, it's not your average kind of plastic. Unfortunately, this means that if, for whatever reason, the high voltage coil well, breaks down, then you have to throw away the whole assembly. But I guess that's not much more different from other high voltage transformers you'd find on the market. So yeah, I guess this was Sony's answer to save costs and effort and all that. Anyway, I'm going to mount the PCB back into its original position, namely the face upside down like this, and then I'm going to give the PCB on the side of the copper traces a cleaning, a thorough cleaning, and then I'm going to unmount the whole chassis from the rest of the cabinet, because I need to be able to turn the whole chassis over so that I can do the tuner board on the underside of the chassis too. So I need to recap that too. Well, once I've unmounted the whole chassis, we'll pick up from there.